helped Gil yesterday for the distinguished alumni.
Oh, cool.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I like Al.
Yeah.
Was he the original starter of the dog kennel? Or the breed?
I think so.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, because he was a sheriff for quite a while.
Yeah, well, my wife babysat their kids when they first got here.
Mhm.
I went to school with his sister Beverly.
Yeah, and his sister taught up there for many years.
Yeah, she was nice.
Oh, meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Luma.
Here.
Fox is absent. Ball is absent. Hudson.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Walty.
Here,
Okay, minutes of the previous meeting were read and approved.
I do have an issue. I thought it would be I thought that Mr. Mesher said we would start in 2027, not 2026. Am I correct with that, Aaron?
So we will find out if we're funded in 25, we will get the money, I believe, in 26. So we probably wouldn't start the project till 27.
Yeah, so the second to last line on the page, Sarah, construction would then be able to start in 2027. I thought that's what he said. And then also, if you go up from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, the fire department in the village is through the township. It's not the county, it's the township trustees. So that needs to be changed to township. Thank you. That's the only change I have.
Make those corrections and be approved. Okay, physical officer's report.
There is $1,778,738.29 in all of these funds. In the general fund, there is $364,949.78.
Okay, the bills were read. Motion was made by,
So moved.
seconded by,
second,
to pay the bills as presented.
Hudson.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Walty.
yes.
Okay, our guest is not here tonight, he had the ball game, but he did say that he is talking with, going to call the state and see how to transfer that title over to the Village of Waynesfield.
That's
For the
corner.
Yeah.
The park, okay.
Okay, committee reports.
Okay, you have a park committee report. We met Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, 5 o'clock. Those attending, Administrator Benner, Councilperson Walter Hudson, Chief Martin, Fiscal Officer Montgomery. Meeting called to order at 5. Roll call taken. Fox was absent due to health reasons. Councilmember Hudson shares with the committee about a conversation he had with Councilmember Nichols, and there will be a possible collaboration with the Luncheon Navy Garden Club in helping possibly to fund veterans benches on the park bike walking path. The June club meeting will be attended by Councilman Hudson. The Michael family's requested June 14th use of the Veterans Park for a 2-hour celebration of life with military honors. Paperwork required, but it's recommended that the fee be waived. Playground splash pad update, the park committee will present, which you have in your packet, an outlay of what the committee is recommending for consideration to the council. The current merry-go-round, which we thought we could use, is unusable due to safety reasons. A new one is now added to the proposal. The Village of Waynesfield will be using an Insight house prep. It's in question, I think, just because of timing and other considerations. I think Aaron can maybe answer more on that. The committee would like 4 benches included in the planned play area. 1 to 2,000 each. Stone for the site prep is an extra 10,000, which is not in the contractor's estimated cost. There will be about 2 months of downtime, the playground from start to finish. 100% of the cost is due at the end of the project. And a possible 6-foot concrete pad between the playground and the stone parking driveway area with an estimate of $240,000. Splash pad, a pump and dump system will be considered over reclaim and filter due to discussion with other villages and their experiences with both. And 2 shade cells were recommended. These would be a cloth, non-removable for maintenance savings between $7,000 and $10,000 per cell with concrete extra. Extra concrete was also discussed for benches at the playground and the splash pad, and discussed as to placing for the bench installed now or at a later date. Common sense rules will be posted. A 6x6 shed will be required for the splash pad controls, and there will be a 2-inch water line and sanitary line hookup that will be required, which is not a problem. The village water pressure is adequate for the operation of the splash pad. Possible operating time is 10 to 8 o'clock. Overhead power lines are no concern for the splash pad location. I think you can see that in provided overhead picture. And possibility of 6-foot sidewalks between the play area and the shelters, just to for contamination purposes, trying not to get grass where it doesn't need to be. For this concern, it would be 50% to start, 50% of completion, estimate of $205,000, and there's also an estimated 5 to 6 man-hours per week for maintenance of the area. And then the grant stuff, we're trying to adhere to guidelines for spending both sets of funding, which is government red tape. The shelter house and the restrooms, they went just between $5,000 and $6,000 just for prints. And there's a possibility of maybe doing separate projects with the pad and the shelter than the restrooms. The village could do that. Contractor off Ohio bids for the pad and shelter only because of the constrictions of the red tape. And then the water, sewer, and electric would have to be already through or placed before the concrete could be poured. And I have an addition here. I had called Aaron, and one of these things that runs through my head. I thought it would be nice if, when we have our grand opening of the park and all the new equipment, if we would have some kind of a contest for the first person on the splash pad. Aaron said it could be simply everybody that comes gets a ticket. You pull a ticket, their number says, hey, number 127, you get to come up, push the button. And it wouldn't have to be one person, it could be maybe a family, instead of just, but I thought that'd be something to get, people interested. And then,
I like that idea.
community involvement.
Yeah.
And then, Kim called for adjournment, and I seconded it. 6:28.
I have a few questions. If the merry-go-round, which I know has been there, kind of like the slide, since the beginning of time, if it's deemed unsafe for use, should we be removing it? Is there a liability that we could be subject to now that we've deemed it unsafe?
So the short answer for that is the insurance agent that come out and looked at it, he said, and then the playground person that we're dealing with currently, there is no playground police. As long as it's there and it's been there, it's not a big issue. But when you start putting new around to reuse that, they wouldn't insure. So to answer your question, it's fine until we redo it as it is.
Yeah, I know there's no one gonna come and say, hey, it's not safe, you have to do something. What I'm concerned about is if we are now aware, and I have the same concern with the slide, that we as village representatives are aware that this is unsafe, and a child gets hurt on it. Certainly, anybody can sue us at any time, we know that. But if we've already determined it's unsafe, how strong a ground do we have if a child is injured now, since we've determined that it's not safe? And that may be a question for the solicitor, but I do think it's something we need we need to investigate, because if we have increased liability, certainly number one, we don't want any child to get hurt. But number two, if we have increased liability, we need to be aware of that and do something to mitigate that, to protect the village's assets.
Yeah, I can reach out to him and see what his opinion is on that.
And this first initial one, where we're talking about the merry-go-round, the $240,000 we would have to pay up front, and then that would be reimbursed back to us via that one part of the grant?
So the way the NatureWorks part of the grant works, we fill out all the paperwork, send it to them, they approve it. We can get up to a third to us up front, and then, Sarah, it's up to 45 days, we would have the rest of it to us, 30 to 45 days,
The rest of what?
the NatureWorks grant dollars. If we would use the whole amount of money in the NatureWorks grant.
Yes,
we
but
get-
when we send them the invoices to get
Well,
reimbursed,
yeah, the time frame of being reimbursed. We would have to use our money for 30 to 45 days
Okay.
in the time frame from when it needs paid till they pay us. They release those funds to us.
So approximately, what you're saying is a third, we could get about $70,000 up front of this 200, and I'm just doing real rough now.
yeah, we.
Right. We would get a third of that up front, and then we would be responsible for the other 14, 18, 20,000.
So, but when we do get that money up front, we have to use it within 45 days, and we have to give like a written report about it. So that's the thing, is when we do ask for it, that's when we need to start moving.
But the village could potentially be responsible for up to 45 days for the other 18, 20,000, 200, no, it's 240,
It'd be
so
like 100.
Well, when they would send the invoice,
180,000.
yeah, when they would send the invoices, I would send them to her, and they have to make sure it's all kosher. And she said within 30 days, which I think you and I discussed before, might be a little bit longer than that.
Right.
So yes, so, I mean, when the invoices come in and we do have to pay out for it, out of like, let's say our general fund, then we could do that, the invoices will come in and it'll go right back in there.
So we have to pay $80,000.
180,000.
180. And sir, you
Because
talked
on the
you talked with the county about
No,
that.
we get a third, they give us a third up front,
Okay,
and then we have to do the rest. Am I saying that right? Ian?
Mhm.
Yeah.
so we,
For that
Okay.
30 to 45
be
days.
$160,000 up front.
I
Yeah,
don't
we-
do math.
we-
Mhm.
I'm not a math person without my calculator.
And
That's what I
again, to Tom's point, the playground is basically net 30, they think they can get it done in 30 days. So they won't bill until it's done. The splash pad, if that's a company we would go with, they want 50% upfront and 50% at the completion. So there's a good chance that if these are timed, the biggest thing is the timing of all this. If both projects are ongoing at the same time, we might not have to use hardly any of our own dollars.
Okay. Okay.
But if we do have to use it, Sarah and I talked, and she talked to the county auditors, and we have that available to use that for that set amount of time.
168,000. Okay. All right.
And again, these are just estimates.
Right, right. No, I get it.
We kind of rounded up.
No, I get it. I just am trying to think, because the general fund, you know, it's not our larger fund. It's a more finite kind of monies. So I'm just wondering what we have to come up with. And then the other thing, did the committee, or the people that are doing, the splash pad and the common sense rules, should we have, like some places are, you use this at your own risk kind of signage.
That's what the common sense
Okay,
rules.
okay.
The ones that I went and looked at, they're all pretty much the same. They might have a couple things specific to their splash pad,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there's general language, and then anything you want to add to that signage, we could put on there.
Any other questions? Any other committees?
Oh, I'm sorry. I will make one statement about my conversation with the Michinippie Garden Club, and I apologize, Mayor, for not getting this in sooner. I didn't make a note. I basically talked to them just about their interest in the project that I'm kind of spearheading in terms of doing something for the, at this point, it's only men that were killed in action in any of the conflicts or wars that we've had. And I'm not sure what their involvement's going to be, if it's going to be money. I know they are also interested in doing a celebration for one of the birthdays for the village. They want to do something along that line. So they also talked to me about possibly doing a combined celebration kind of thing at the end next year in the spring when we're done, as we celebrate finishing the project and maybe naming the park and making it a community-wide involvement, and they want to be involved in that. And I'm glad Tom's going to come with me so we have good representation from the council. Thank you. Mitch.
Okay, any other committee reports? Okay, police report.
All right, I have a couple pieces of additional information for council, as you should have my report and the properties that are listed in the code enforcement process. We will need to talk more about a couple specific properties during new business. I will mention that the process that we have in place seems to be pretty effective and clear cut. The graduation ceremony went well yesterday. Thankfully, there were no major issues and the ceremony went as planned. And lastly, I'm going to share with council a plaque that we received from Lexipol for our outstanding policy management practices in the police department that I had mentioned in my report. So, pass that down. And then, once we get into new business, I'll talk about both A and B. But other than that, that's what I have.
Nathan, what is Lexipol? I mean, what?
Yeah, so Lexipol is the company that manages our policies and procedures for the police department. So we have a lot of requirements that we must meet to adhere to state standards, and rather than having council create this big, huge manual, we pay a company to do that. So that way we're covered. They're known as the premier policy management for law enforcement in the country.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yep. You done?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions, more questions for our partner, for Nathan? Okay, village administrator report.
Pretty short and sweet this month. There's, we had a couple highlights. We hadn't heard back about the digger truck. It is not done yet. The fellow that we are in contact with was on vacation. He goes back this week, so we should have a better time frame on that. We do have a couple days worth of work with AMP coming in. So that truck will be needed for some of that, so we might have to push that back to schedule for the end of last week of the month. We might have to push that back to the following month if we don't have the truck back yet. Update on the water and sewer bills for the e-bills. Evidently, talking with the software company, shouldn't be as hard as it is, but it is. They have a hiccup somewhere. So we ended up just mailing them out to residents instead of trying to wait and figure all that out. But I'm hoping that at minimum, by the time we need to have something go out as a mailer or an attached piece with the bill, that'll be ready to go. And if it's not, we have that list of folks that we can just mail that out to. We talked about the park things, and then the last thing, I did talk to Daniel at council request after the last meeting, and he did get back with me as far as the zoning board of appeals. Husband and wife is not such a good thing, but I know there's a question of any police officer being on there. He said that's not a problem, and per our zoning, we need five folks to be on that.
I did think of another question regarding this, as we are appointing these people. We don't want to get into a situation where we're not following the proper procedure for appointment. The mayor recommends and council approves. The mayor does it all.
No.
Okay,
So
so
the
the
mayor,
names have to come
the
to
mayor will
council.
bring the folks to council approves them, and at that point, we would have a meeting with them, letting them kind of know what their duties of being on that board will be.
Another legal consideration is that since our police chief is our zoning enforcement agent, while he may be the police officer, Mr. Hume may be allowed to be on the board, could it be construed as a possible conflict on our part to allow one of his subordinates to be a member of a deciding panel about a decision that he's bringing before the board?
So that question was asked to Daniel, and he said there's, in his legal opinion, that's not a factor.
Okay. Okay, I know where we're headed with some of these, and I think while it's difficult to get people, to volunteer to be on these boards, I think that as a council, we need to be very cautious about creating anything that could perceive to be, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, I think you know what I'm looking for, it's my pickup, perceived to be as be loading the board so that it makes decisions that we want it to make.
Yeah, a lot of these things is not opinion related, it's, you got the code, the ordinance, it's either followed, it's not followed.
Right. I know, Tim, I agree, but I also know that when you start talking to people about tearing down buildings, I think we need to be very cautious. That's my only. Thank you.
So I'd ask that the mayor asked Steve Humes to be on it, he could be on it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's
I mean, just,
here's my opinion.
Okay.
If you want it.
good, good.
I would be concerned having any of my officers on the zoning board of appeals because we're going to be approaching, once this vehicle ordinance goes into effect, there's about 30 or so properties that potentially could be in violation. And of those properties, some of those are individuals we deal with on a criminal side of things. And what I don't want is I don't want to respond or have my officers respond to a resident that we deal with criminally, and they say, well, you're just coming after me criminally because I've got a junk vehicle on my property or something like that.
Okay.
It could be construed maybe as discriminatory in nature. So I would have reservations, while it may be okay and it may be legal, I would have reservations about having any of my officers on. Now, certainly we're a small community, and even the court has recognized that there have been spouses on council together. There have been, in small communities, you have to do what you have to do to fill positions. So that's why it's legal. If we can avoid it, though, I think that would be a preferable way to go, just to eliminate that from being a problem. So that's not to say that an officer's spouse or whatever couldn't be on the committee, because while they may be married, it's two separate, and I think there's less of an issue there. But having an officer that, again, would be responding to a property that, and that officer may not know what's going on from a code enforcement standpoint until they get to the appeals process. But even 6 months after that matter on the Board of Appeals is resolved, they may be responding to another call down there and feel like they've been slighted because of prior stuff.
I would hate to see us put our one part-time officer in a position of conflict.
Right.
And the nice thing is if Mr. Humes and his wife have both agreed that they would be on the committee, maybe we just say yes to the wife and if we can find others, then that would be the best practice for us to avoid any potential conflicts.
Sure.
And if you try to avoid them where you can. Thank you.
I got another question. The fire department is run by the township. Could somebody from the fire department be on this committee? Since they're in the township, instead of the town? Some of the buildings might be a fire hazard,
The zoning board of appeals have to be residents.
Yes,
I think that-
residents of the community.
They can be on the fire department if they live inside the corporation limits. So that would be a possibility, but only if they're a resident of the village.
Okay.
Anything else, Brian?
The only other thing I would just want to let council know, with that storm that come through Friday, we did get called in. About 9 o'clock or so, there was one tree down on Ohio's
Yes,
Ohio.
Ohio and Cook.
And there was a very large, like third of a tree branch down on Ohio, and there was some down here on the Sugar, there at the corner of the curve. We worked till about 11:30 getting all that cleared off. And then Saturday, there was a resident that called and let us know that they had a branch on a power line. So we were out over the weekend cleaning up a little bit of storm damage. It looks like most of the heavy damage, I noticed on Ohio Street today, excuse me, the residents were cutting up and putting the firewood that they wanted.
The branches are all gone too.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other one on Cook Street is, I think she has somebody in mind to get that cleaned up, so.
So the branch that was on the power line, I know in the past, when a branch has been on a power line or fallen on a power line, we did charge a resident for the repair of that, but since, I mean, what's your thought on that, what we gotta do
So,
with
that was after God.
that? Okay,
Friday.
okay, so we're gonna say after
Yeah.
God, okay, nope,
Yep.
it's fine.
Yep, and that Friday, or Saturday rather, it wasn't on primary, where the other incident was on primary.
It's fine, I'm just,
Sure.
wanting us to voice it out loud,
Sure.
why we
Yep.
did it.
So far you've got 3 members from the board, then, Rodney? Mayor?
5.
You got 5 so far?
5 that committed.
And who are they?
Yeah, who are they? I'm sorry.
Get the list out.
I think you mentioned last month, but
Margie Humes, Billy Joe Bond, Brian Carter, Brian Davidson, and my son said he wanted to be on it, so.
Brian Carter, Brian Davidson,
What's your son's name?
Sam Little,
Vaughn, what was the first name, Mayor, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand you.
Marge Hughes, I mean.
Okay.
What was the second name? I'm sorry.
In order to get this moving for Nathan, should we vote on those names to approve? It's not on the agenda, but maybe we should add it.
We need a motion to accept them.
Are you doing that as part of your report, Mayor? Or you-
Billy Vaughn, you say?
Billy, her name's Billy Bond, yeah.
Yeah, Marge is on it?
Marge Hume,
Margie.
okay, Margie Hume, Brian Carter, Brian
Okay, I got
Davidson,
that.
1, 2, 3, 4, I only have 4 names, what's the fifth?
Dan Lumen, Rodney's boy.
Oh, okay.
He said, yeah.
Billy,
Sam.
Sam,
Sam?
I think she was by mistake. So can I get a motion to accept those 5 individuals?
We need a motion to accept them 5 names, you say?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept them 5 names.
Okay, can we get a second?
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walke.
Yes.
And who seconded that? I'm sorry.
I did, sir.
Thank you.
Motion to accept mayor's recommendations for zoning board of appeals. And how long of a term are those individuals in for? Do you know?
Don't quote me, but I thought it was a 3-year. I know I've had emails back and forth with the solicitor about that.
You might want to also ask him, Aaron, because I don't think we'll want the board to go out all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
If there should be an assignage of
3 and 2.
3 and 2, yeah.
Anything for Aaron? Okay. Mayor's Court report, 948 was deposited in the general fund from the Mayor's Court account for the month of March. Old business, need a resolution amending the established fee structure for zoning district amendments. Can I get a motion to add the 3rd reading?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 25-3-1, amending zoning fee structures.
Get a second?
Second.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walke.
Yes.
Okay. An ordinance 25-4-1, an ordinance adopting the fixed asset policy for the Village of Waynesfield, State of Ohio. Can I get a motion for the 2nd reading?
We'll make a motion, we do the 2nd reading of the fixed asset policy ordinance 25-4-1.
Do you get a second?
I'll second. Sorry, Tom.
Who seconded it?
Bob.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty.
Yes.
No, that's the zoning is, yes.
Resolution 24-4-1, resolution designating the Waynesfield Park to the Waynesfield Veterans Memorial Park. Can I get a motion for the second reading?
Also moved.
Can I get a second?
Also move. Second, sorry.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty.
Yes.
Resolution 25-4-2, resolution adopting rules and regulations governing the use of municipal utilities. Can I get a motion for the second reading of resolution 25-4-2?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walty.
Yes.
Okay, any other old business? Okay, new business. You wanna talk about that before?
Yeah, I do. We can't do this as an emergency. We only have 4 council members present tonight, so this would be done as a first reading only. But I would recommend to council that a couple of changes be made on page 1 of the proposed ordinance. I've made some changes, and I'll give those to Sarah, but essentially, instead of it saying adopting the 2025 edition of the Ohio Basic Code, we would just omit the 2025 edition of, and it would just read the Ohio Basic Code. That way, every year when we re-adopt the Ohio Basic Code, we don't have to repass this ordinance. So if you don't put the year's edition in, then you're able to not have to repass this every single year. So I'll give the changes to Sarah when we do the second reading next month, or potentially pass it as an emergency next month. Those changes will be reflected in there. So again, you have to have 5 to pass an emergency, and we only have 4. So tonight would just be the first reading.
Make a motion, we have the first reading of ordinance number 25, the amendment of ordinance 25-5-1. Yeah, the first reading.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad you all are sitting down. It's gonna take a minute on this one. All right, I have 3 properties tonight to discuss with council on how we want to proceed. You should have in your packet 2 separate properties with the pictures, and I'll go down in order, starting with 205 West Mulberry Street, the Todd Raines property. This weekend, the pictures reflect that these pictures were taken actually on May the 15th. They're not a complete accurate reflection because over the weekend, half of the yard was mowed. However, the items that you see in the pictures still remain. So the vehicle that with trash or substance in the back.
They mowed around it, did he, or what?
Yeah, well, it appears that part of the backyard is kind of mowed, part of it's not. Anyway, about half the property still has grass that's about 2 to 3 feet deep. There's been 0 movement on cleaning up the trash, broken down golf cart, trailer, and dilapidated shed. If council chooses to pass a motion to continue enforcement against Mr. Raines, the next step in the enforcement process would be to send him a certified letter with the right to appeal the violation findings. Mr. Raines would then have 7 days to appeal the ruling or have the issues resolved. If the issues are not resolved by the next council meeting and no hearing request was made within that 7-day time frame, then council would have to decide whether or not to proceed with abatement of the problems on the property. Now, I say all that, if he doesn't appeal, but he were to have the issues resolved before the next council meeting, then that would obviously change whether or not we would need to abate. So he would have a little bit longer than 7 days, but he only has appellate rights from 7 days from the date of service on the certified letter. I'll talk about what happens in just a moment if the certified letter is rejected, and we've got a process now through the attorney that we can use for that. I'll talk about that here in just a moment. So if we wanted to address property number 1 first, then we can go from there. But it would be my recommendation to council, if you see fit, based upon the evidence I presented to you, that a motion be entertained to send Mr. Raines a certified letter with his appellate rights included.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walton.
Yes,
The second property I have is 209 East Mulberry Street, the Samantha Danner property. The property was partially cleaned up after the first letter was generated. However, as you can see in the evidence I provided in the picture form, there are still problems on the property. I checked the property this morning, and the pictures you have are an accurate depiction of what is still there. This is another situation where if council chooses to pass a motion to continue enforcement action against Ms. Danner, then a certified letter with appellate rights would be sent with the same process being followed as I previously mentioned.
that picture shows some effort, just not much. You gotta, we need it.
The thought's there, the thought process is there, but it's not been utilized.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we send the certified letter with her rights, I believe is what you're asking us to do.
Yes.
And make that motion.
Second,
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walton.
yes,
The final property I have tonight is the, I believe the address is 200 North Westminster Street, the Blue House near Salty Heifer Fans Pizza, owned by Connie Standing Clear. Per our solicitor, the Village of Waynesfield's only obligation for code enforcement is to attempt to deliver violation notices to the property owner via certified mail and posting on the property that is in violation. If the certified mail is rejected or otherwise unclaimed, then the notice placed on the property with photographic evidence of the posting is sufficient. The solicitor said we can deliver a notice to the property owner or pay a process server to deliver the notice and post it on the property where the owner lives. However, it is not required. There was also a concern that if we do opt to hand deliver notices to wherever a property owner may live, then we would need to do that for all of our code enforcement violations because we have set procedural precedent. And if we don't follow the same procedure in every situation, then it could create a litigious issue should the Village of Waynesfield get sued. So if council elects, we could attempt one final certified letter to Ms. Standing Clear and see if she will claim it, as well as post it on the 200 North Westminster Street property. And then the last, I will mention the last letter was sent in October while everything was kind of in flux. So it might be worth a shot to at least show the paper trail.
This particular property has been served certified letters previously, and the property owner did receive them
Correct.
in a different process.
Correct.
And so this process, just in case council's unaware, and this came to the Property Maintenance Committee when it was in,
Yep.
This process has been ongoing on this type of property for several years.
Correct.
Several years. And my personal opinion is we need to follow a process and get something done.
Right.
It's just, otherwise we might as well just stop what we're doing. You need a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we stay consistent, if we have that motion, I'll post it tomorrow, and then we'll send the certified out tomorrow, and we will, I think we'll get a lot further along. One thing just to keep in mind, that response we have not ever received in previous, with this property, we've not received any cooperation in previous correspondence. So council just needs to have in the back of their mind the abatement process, which would come if there's no appeals filed and that type of thing. And so there would need to be financial resources available to abate the property, and that could potentially bring up the possibility of, do we need a structural engineer? Do we need to just board up the windows that are broken, to seal the holes in the foundation? You know, what does council, feel like we need to do at that point? So,
And this is a question, Aaron, for you, because I know we've had this discussion before. If we, I guess both of you can chime in on this, if we continue with the process and we get to the point of abatement that says the property needs to be removed and torn down, once we get to that point through the legal system, can we as a village then apply to the county for their funds to tear that property down?
No, because we don't own the property. You have to have the
Okay.
homeowners.
I couldn't remember, I knew there was a catch on that.
Mhm. Now, if they have that available, you know, it won't be till next year. If it would go that far and that long, and she knows about that and wants to move forward with that, that'd be one option for her, but I believe that all that paperwork has to be in November.
the other remote option, I was reading up a little bit about this today. If the village were to take action to abate in the form of mowing the grass, trimming the trees off the sidewalk height, fixing, not fixing, but sealing off the windows and that type of thing, and then bill the property owner for that action, it doesn't get paid, it would then be assessed with property taxes. Once the property taxes either are paid, we would get reimbursed for that, or if they're not paid, it would be a lien, and once you reach a certain dollar amount, then the village could actually file with the court to take ownership of the property. But again, I'm not sure that what we would do to try to abate that would meet a financial dollar amount to be able to take ownership of that property.
And I don't, as a village council member, I don't want to set up a process whereas we build them enough to take the property from them.
Right.
I don't want to be that. I don't
Well,
wanna
we're
be
not a
that.
real estate company either.
Well, and but that being said, we have properties that are in severe distress, that are hazards, and we need to address it.
Right.
Well, I know personally, I've had people on both sides of this property
Mhm.
approach me, knowing that I was against them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I mean,
when we have
we-
residents, neighbors that are concerned,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
they're reaching out for some help.
Well, the tax has been paid, right?
Yeah, they're current, yeah.
I mean, I was in a conversation with someone and, their comment to me was, do we want to be, and I won't name the specific villages, but do we want to be a village that obviously has a lot of pride in how they look, and that they want things to look clean and neat, and then when people come through, they go, wow, that's a nice place, those people must really care about where they live, versus other places where it's very clear that there is no, houses have junk cars in front of them, old trampolines, couches and chairs, and it looks like a garbage dump.
Right.
And I personally want our village to be the former.
Sure.
I want it to be a place of pride, and I am proud of what we have, and we need to take care of it and encourage our residents to do so. My only other question, that being said, what do we have a date set for, and are we gonna do the village cleanup day again?
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
Typically, it's the weekend after the 4th of July weekend,
Sales.
because with community garage sales being
And-
the 5th of July, so, Saturday, we talked about that, didn't we?
I think we need to start publicizing that now,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And giving
garage sales
people the
July 5th,
opportunity.
mhm.
Because,
I-
it is an opportunity.
I
If
think,
people don't have the finances, that's an opportunity for them to take advantage of free dumping.
absolutely, that date would be July the 12th, and I think, did Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, or Sarah, did council had to pass a motion to do that, correct? So we just started. So, I mean, that can fall under new business, because this is brought up now, so.
Yeah, and get the dumpsters.
Yeah, that gives us time to put it on social media, people can talk to people and say, hey, community cleanup's coming. I'll have that conversation with, the folks as we're doing code enforcement,
July 12th, is that what you said?
July 12th, yeah. And would that be from what time, Aaron?
last year's worked really well, and I believe, was that 9 to 2?
9 to 2,
9
yeah.
to 2, yeah.
But people have got things after that.
Absolutely, the dumpster will be there,
All weekend, right?
at least, most generally they're there Friday
Friday
night,
night, yeah.
but they will be there from Saturday till Monday. So people can come as they want and put,
Have we ever had a junk vehicle dropped off at anything like?
well, we'll have a rental dumpster, so that'll be fun.
Might have 3 of them.
I mean, it might pay for the dumpsters and scrap, I don't know.
So we need a motion to send a letter to,
Going back up.
Yeah,
That-
so
that
the first thing we
property,
need is a motion to send a letter with appeals rights to Connie Standing Clear, and then we can do the motion for the, community cleanup after that.
I'll make a motion, we proceed with paperwork on this property at 200 North Westminster Street.
Second.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walton.
Yes.
Speaking of the village cleanup, it seems like I'm always out of town that day. I don't plan it, but
Yes, you did.
Well, now you can.
because it's my wife's, her birthday, and we're usually gone. And we'll-
Okay, that's a good excuse.
We'll be in Michigan this year. I already know that, so I apologize in advance.
Do you want to change the date?
Happy life, happy life.
No, for the cleanup day.
Yeah, it's already set, it's already
Well, you
set.
should come over to them.
Everybody wrote that down.
People work an hour, Tom. Helps out.
What time you coming back? We can make it later.
That's the following weekend. Sorry. Because I'm always, it's just one of the things I always miss.
I make a motion that we establish July 12th, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. as Community Cleanup Day.
Is it 9 AM you said?
9 a.m. to 2 p.m., yes, is what Aaron said, so.
Second.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Walton.
Yes.
Usually went to 3 o'clock, but nobody,
Then the
nobody
other-
comes last hour.
The other item that I don't want to see slip through, I thought in the park committee, there was a question about giving permission to waive a fee for someone to
Yeah.
use.
For the Mike Cole celebration of
Yeah,
life.
we'll need to act on that then if that's what you want us to do.
That was our recommendation for his service to his country, and, I think Nathan said that they should still fill out the
How is we
paperwork.
gonna do that?
Yeah, they just fill out the application, if council passes a motion to waive the fee to rent the park, then that would be sufficient.
And I'm gonna be the devil's advocate in this, so, I know we've waived the fee in one circumstance, and that was the, childhood cancer walk.
Lions Auxiliary,
So-
yeah.
We'll be establishing precedent to waiving for this celebration of life.
It's military honors too, and I think we talked about it in the park committee, that they have to understand that they don't have the park by themselves. There could be other things going on, but they can use the area of the memorial and the gazebo, right? And they can have that, but it's not isolated just to them.
Is that mainly where they want to have it
I'm not,
around the wall there? or-
Yeah, they wanna do it
Yeah, I
right at
think
the wall, and they'd be utilizing the parking lot right there. They said roughly 50 people would be there.
So as a precedent setting, and I'm not really worried about what they're using, I'm worried about the precedent they're setting. As a precedent then, what we're saying is that if someone is having a celebration of life for a former military personnel, in the future, we will waive the fee to use the park. Because that's what you're in essence saying.
Well, but we could always say no, too.
Well, we're
We can
setting
do each
precedent,
time
Tim.
individually, so we do.
They call it celebration of life, but I really don't think it's gonna be a bunch of people out there drinking, celebrating the life. I think it's gonna be more, I could be wrong, but I think it's gonna be more of military, that you're gonna show, military rights. And I think that's more what it's about.
I know
Am I right or wrong?
we had talked to committee about, is this any different than the ball association using a ball field? that day.
Mhm.
Do we need to have them fill out any paperwork or even anything? They already know that the park is not theirs fully. Just give them the opportunity to do their thing and know that the military are actually going to be there. You know, that's the 21 gun salute and whatnot. Then do we even need to have the paperwork signed?
Yeah, that's true. Here's the reality. If somebody went out there this weekend to the wall and decided to have their
Right,
own
there's no way to do that.
service, then fine. And if they don't fill out any paperwork or anything like that, and just show up and have a service, then we appreciate them letting us know. So if there's gunfire in the area, we're aware of what's going on. But if they wanted to reserve the park for an entire day and do a, I don't know,
I think
whatever.
reserving the gazebo and saying it's absolutely going to be there for them
Right,
and nobody else can use it.
right. That's different than,
That-
yeah.
So I'd say just not, if they're okay with not filling out paperwork and just using it as is, and we know that they're gonna have a 21 gun salute.
Right.
You know, and I think some ways to let the residents know around there that that's gonna be
Yeah,
happening.
they'll hear it when they
Yeah,
go
you're
pick
gonna
up
get a lot
their
of calls. Maybe the clear thing is to not waive it and just say, thanks for letting us know, use it, the park's open.
You're not setting a precedent then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
We can do
we
that, that's
technically
great.
don't own that property
Right.
where the wall's at right
Right.
now anyways.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's probably a cleaner way to do it. Okay, just let it go.
Bang, 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 it's like, ball folks, somebody like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Together.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Any other new business? Okay, get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Yep,
You said yes?
I did. I said yep.
Sorry, I can't see back behind the screen, I never know whose mouth is moving.
Usually not mine.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolf.
Yeah.
I know we did, it's over, but, you know, for those of you taking care and put this in